I was gripping the edge of my spreadsheet like it was a lifeline when Rick Brennan started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, not a nervous smile, a full belly laugh like I'd just told him the funniest joke he'd heard all week. My hands were shaking, but I kept them steady on that paper. 3 days I'd spent building that thing. Salary data from 6 different sources, color-coded averages, market comparisons, cross-referenced with Bureau of Labor Statistics data and industry reports from the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. I knew exactly what I was worth, or at least I thought I did. "Rick," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "I want to discuss a compensation adjustment based on current market rates." He leaned back in that Herman Miller chair, the one that cost $2,400 more than I make in a month, and looked at me like I'd just asked to borrow his vacation home. That's when he started laughing. I'm Carl Bennett, by the way. 44 years old, been doing logistics for Walsh Industries for 20 years now. Started in 2004 when gas was still under $2 and nobody knew what an ERP system was. Back then, this place had 12 employees and operated out of a converted warehouse with a leaky roof and a coffee pot that made motor oil. I watched this place grow from that startup into a multi-state operation handling 60 employees and contracts worth millions. I was the one who landed the Morrison Industries account in '07 that tripled our shipping volume overnight. When the recession hit in 2008 and half our competitors went under, I talked Martinez Freight into extending credit terms that kept us afloat. I built relationships with vendors who'd take my calls at midnight when shipments went sideways, who'd reroute trucks through ice storms because they trusted my word. In 2019, I implemented the SAP ERP system that digitized our entire operation. Took me 8 months of 16-hour days, learning modules, training staff, debugging integration issues. That system saved Walsh Industries $1.2 million annually in efficiency gains and reduced processing errors by 87%. The year before, I'd gotten us DOT compliant ahead of the federal mandate, avoiding the fines that cost our competitors hundreds of thousands. When Dan Wilson got pushed into early retirement last year, corporate called it strategic restructuring, but we all knew what it meant. I absorbed his entire workload without a title change or a dollar increase. Suddenly, I was managing 2 plants, coordinating staff schedules across 3 states, handling vendor negotiations worth more than most people's annual salaries, and keeping our overtime numbers down while meeting impossible deadlines, all while my official title remained operations coordinator. "Where'd you pull these numbers from?" Rick asked, tapping my spreadsheet like it was a restaurant menu he didn't trust. "Indeed, monster?" "Those fantasy websites?" I didn't laugh back. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Glassdoor, industry salary surveys from CSCMP and APICS. I cross-referenced everything with direct contacts at 4 competitors in our region and 2 national firms. "Sure you did," he said, still grinning like I was his nephew showing off a crayon drawing. "Look, Carl, you're comfortable here. Good benefits, stable job. At our age, we don't chase pipe dreams." That phrase hit me wrong. Our age. Like being 44 meant I should be grateful for whatever scraps they threw my way. Like having experience was somehow a liability instead of an asset. The data shows operations managers with my experience level and certifications earned between $88,000 and $95,000, I continued. "I'm currently at 68. That's 22% below market minimum." Rick shrugged, like the whole conversation was out of his hands. "Budgets are tight, Carl. You know how it is. Look, I get it. Emma's college tuition is coming up. That's expensive. But we can't adjust everyone's salary based on personal circumstances. 20 years. 20 years I'd been walking into this building every morning at 6:30, staying late when shipments ran behind, covering holidays when other people wanted to be with their families. I'd skipped vacations to handle crisis shipments, taken calls during family dinners, worked weekends to implement systems that made other people's jobs easier. When our biggest client threatened to pull their contract in 2015 because of delivery issues, I drove to their facility in Indiana, sat in their conference room for 6 hours, and walked them through a recovery plan I drafted on the drive up. Saved a $2 million relationship and got a handshake and a good job email from Rick's boss. When Hurricane Harvey shut down half the Gulf Coast shipping routes in 2017, I coordinated with alternate vendors, rerouted shipments through 4 different states, and kept our deliveries running while our competitors had to shut down for a week. Worked 36 hours straight, slept in my office, lived on gas station coffee and vending machine sandwiches. The result? We gained 3 new major clients who'd been left hanging by their previous logistics providers. Plus, Rick continued, you've got your house mostly paid down, Emma's doing well in school. You're already doing fine for someone in your situation. What situation exactly? Established employee, family man, settled down. It's not like you're going anywhere, right? There it was, the real reason. Rick saw my stability, my family responsibilities, my 20 years of building this operation as reasons to underpay me, not reasons to value me more. He figured I was trapped. Mortgage payments, wife, kid heading to college in the fall, where was I gonna go? He was betting on my loyalty being stronger than my self-respect. For 20 years, that bet had paid off. The numbers were right there in front of him. I'd built vendor relationships that saved the company millions. I'd implemented systems that increased efficiency across every department. I'd managed logistics operations that kept 60 people employed and dozens of clients satisfied. I held Lean Six Sigma certification, OSHA compliance credentials, and had completed advanced training on 3 different ERP platforms. I knew transportation regulations better than half the people at the Department of Transportation. I could negotiate shipping rates with carriers, coordinate just-in-time delivery schedules, manage warehouse inventory levels, and troubleshoot supply chain disruptions that would paralyze other operations. And Rick was sitting there laughing because he thought none of that mattered. Because he thought being 44 with a family meant I'd accept whatever he decided to pay me. I folded the spreadsheet once, then twice, and stood up. Got it. He looked genuinely surprised. Probably expected me to keep arguing, maybe beg a little, explain about Emma's tuition costs and the mortgage payments we still had 11 years left on. Maybe promise to work even harder if he'd just consider a small increase. Instead, I walked out without another word. The hallway felt different on the way back to my desk. Same fluorescent lights that had been buzzing for a decade. Same worn carpet that hadn't been replaced since the Clinton administration. Same industrial smell of coffee and copy machine toner that had become the background scent of my adult life. But something fundamental had shifted in those 10 minutes in Rick's office. I sat down at cubicle C17, tucked behind the server room where the air conditioning had never worked properly, and stared at my computer screen. The same Dell monitor I'd been looking at for 6 years, running software I'd helped select and implement, managing operations that I'd designed and optimized. For 20 years, I'd thought loyalty was about dedication, about showing up every day and doing the work regardless of recognition. I thought it was about being the guy who solved problems instead of creating them, who made other people's jobs easier instead of harder. Turns out loyalty was just another word for predictable. My phone buzzed. Text from my brother Tyler, how'd it go? Didn't go well, I typed back. Time to see what you're actually worth, he replied. 20 years experience? Market's hungry for guys like you. That evening, Lisa was making dinner when I walked in. Emma was at the kitchen counter doing calculus homework. Her textbooks spread out like she was preparing for war. Advanced placement, everything. Math, economics, chemistry. Smart kid with expensive tastes in education. How'd the meeting go? Lisa asked, not looking up from the stove. Didn't go well. Emma glanced up from her equations. What happened, Dad? Nothing, sweetheart. Just work stuff. But Lisa caught my eye and nodded. After 18 years of marriage, she could read between the lines. We'd been doing that math for months. Emma's college costs, our mortgage payments, the way grocery bills kept climbing while my paycheck stayed flat. She knew what this meeting meant to our family's future. Later that night, after Emma finished her homework and Lisa went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. Hadn't opened the thing in 3 years except to check email and pay bills online. The resume file was buried so deep I spent 15 minutes just finding it, hidden in a folder called Old Documents like it was archaeological evidence of a previous life. Still had my job at Miller Freight listed from 2003, back when I thought coordinating truck schedules was the height of logistics sophistication. 20 years of career growth compressed into bullet points that made my professional life sound like a grocery list. I started rebuilding everything from scratch. The more I typed, the more I realized how much I'd accomplished without anyone bothering to document it. 2 decades of problems solved, systems implemented, relationships built, crises managed. All the work that kept the lights on and the trucks moving, invisible until it wasn't there anymore. My actual responsibilities bore no resemblance to my official job description. Operations coordinator suggested someone who took orders and followed procedures. What I actually did was run a multi-state logistics network, negotiate million-dollar vendor contracts, manage DOT compliance across 2 facilities, Coordinate just-in-time delivery schedules for clients who measured delays in minutes, not hours. Once I updated the work history, I added every certification I'd earned on my own time and dime. Lean, Six Sigma Black Belt, OSHA 30. Construction Safety, SAP Materials Management Certification, APICS Supply Chain Operations Reference Certification. Then I listed the software platforms I'd mastered. Oracle Transportation Management, Manhattan Associates Warehouse Systems, Descartes Route Optimization Software. I clicked over to LinkedIn for the first time since the pandemic and refreshed my profile completely. Changed my title to what I actually was, Director of Operations. Added quantifiable achievements. Reduced shipping costs by 32% through vendor consolidation. Improved on-time delivery from 82% to 97.8%. Implemented ERP system that eliminated 47 hours of weekly manual data entry. Even updated my photo to one where I looked like someone who knew what he was doing instead of someone apologizing for existing. Then I started browsing job postings, and I swear I nearly put my fist through the screen. Senior Operations Manager at an automotive parts distributor. 95 to 110,000 plus quarterly bonuses. Exact same responsibilities I'd been doing for 5 years. Director of Logistics Operations at a manufacturing company, 108 to 125,000, company vehicle, health savings account, stock options. VP of Operations at a regional firm, 130,000 starting, performance bonuses up to 25% additional. People doing half the work I did, with fewer certifications, managing smaller operations, pulling 6 figures like it was entry-level pay. One posting literally described training programs I'd developed and procedures I'd written, offering starting salaries 15,000 above what Rick paid me after 2 decades. I read posting after posting until my eyes burned. Supply chain managers with 5 years experience making more than I did with 20. Logistics coordinators earning what I should have been making 5 years ago. Transportation managers with bachelor's degrees and no certifications pulling salaries I'd never seen. Every single listing confirmed what my spreadsheet had told Rick that afternoon. I wasn't just underpaid, I was systematically exploited. I updated my LinkedIn profile that Monday night. By Wednesday morning, I had 9 unread messages waiting. 2 from executive recruiters, 3 from staffing agencies, 4 direct inquiries from companies I'd never contacted. The subject lines all said the same thing in different words. Impressive background. Exciting opportunity. Let's discuss your career goals. I clicked the first message. Carl, I'm Sarah from Midwest Staffing Solutions. Your operations background caught our attention. We have a client in Milwaukee offering $97,000 base for a single plant operation. Much simpler than your current scope. Interested in a conversation? 97 grand for less responsibility than I had now. I'd been stuck at 68,000 since 2021, watching inflation eat away 15% of my purchasing power while Rick acted like cost of living adjustments were luxury bonuses. I called Sarah back during my lunch break, sitting in my Honda in the parking lot where nobody could overhear. 15 minutes later, I had a phone interview scheduled for Thursday and a detailed job description in my email. The position was almost insultingly simple compared to what I managed daily. Single facility, 120 employees, established vendor relationships, basic inventory management. No ERP implementation, no multi-state coordination, no crisis management, no vendor contract negotiations. Just running a smooth operation that someone else had already optimized. For $30,000 more than Walsh was paying me. By Friday, I was drowning in opportunities. 4 video interviews scheduled, 3 in-person meetings lined up for the following week, and recruiters calling with new positions every few hours. I started taking calls in my truck during lunch, driving 3 blocks away from the office to avoid being overheard. The conversations all followed the same pattern. Professional recruiters who understood logistics operations, who knew what terms like dock-to-stock cycle time and vendor-managed inventory actually meant. When I mentioned reducing detention fees by implementing better scheduling protocols, they didn't need explanations. When I talked about negotiating fuel surcharge caps during volatile markets, they nodded and took notes. These weren't HR people reading from scripts. These were industry professionals who recognized expertise when they saw it. Carl Bennett, the call came Friday afternoon, Denver area code. This is Michelle from Rocky Mountain Logistics. Do you have a minute to discuss a director position? Go ahead. We need someone to run our Western region operations. 4 facilities, multi-state coordination, vendor management, ERP oversight. Your LinkedIn profile shows exactly the background we're looking for. She didn't waste time with small talk. 135 base, 20% performance bonus potential if you hit operational targets. Company truck, Silverado, or F-150, your choice. Full relocation package if you want to move to Denver, but the position's remote 3 days per week regardless. Stock options vest over 4 years, health benefits start day 1. I pulled into a gas station and parked. Did you say 135? Base salary? Correct. The bonus structure typically adds another 25 to 30,000 if you perform at the level your background suggests. We've been looking for someone with your specific skill set: multi-plan operations, vendor relationship management, ERP implementation experience. My hands were shaking. I'm very interested. Excellent. We'd like to set up a panel interview next week. You'd be meeting with our COO, the regional managers you'd be overseeing, and our head of operations. Does Monday afternoon work? Monday's perfect. Great. I'll send you the details and a comprehensive job description. One question. What's your target timeline for making a transition? I thought about Rick's laugh, about 20 years of being taken for granted, about Emma's college application sitting on our kitchen counter. As soon as possible. That weekend, I sat in the garage reviewing 4 serious offers spread across my workbench like blueprints for a new life. Milwaukee at $97,000 for simpler work. Phoenix Freight Systems at $105,000 for regional coordination. Clearwater Materials at $120,000 plus a company truck. And Rocky Mountain at $135,000 plus bonuses that could push me past $160, nearly double my current compensation, for work I was already doing. Lisa found me out there Sunday evening, still in her workout clothes from the gym, holding a protein shake and looking at me like I'd discovered buried treasure in our driveway. Which one? She asked. I showed her the Rocky Mountain offer on my phone. She read through the details twice, then started laughing. That full belly laugh she'd been holding back for years, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment since we got married. You're finally getting paid like the man I know you are, she said. Monday morning, I called Michelle from the office parking lot before walking into Walsh Industries for what I didn't know would be my last week. Michelle, this is Carl Bennett. I'm formally accepting Rocky Mountain's offer, pending the final paperwork review. Outstanding. HR will have everything ready by Wednesday. We're excited to have you on board. I hung up and sat in my Honda for a minute, breathing in the smell of morning coffee from the Dunkin' Donuts across the street. 20 years of driving into the same parking lot, finding the same spot in the back row because the good spaces went to management. 20 years of walking through those glass doors, wondering if today would be the day someone noticed what I contributed. Now I didn't need them to notice. Back inside, I opened my laptop and pulled up a blank document. The resignation letter wrote itself. Professional, direct, clean. 2 weeks notice, effective immediately upon delivery. No explanations, no emotions, just facts presented like the business decision it was. I printed it, sealed it in an envelope, and walked straight to Rick's office. He was typing something that looked important, wearing that focused expression he put on when he wanted people to think he was solving complex problems. I placed the envelope on his desk without saying a word. He looked at it like it might explode. What's this, 2 weeks notice? The typing stopped. You're quitting? The surprise in his voice was genuine, like the possibility had never occurred to him that someone might actually leave his operation. I got another offer, one that pays market rate for what I do. He leaned back in that overpriced chair, arms folded, trying to regain control of a conversation that had already ended. Come on, Carl. This is about the raise discussion, isn't it? You're being dramatic. I almost smiled. Rocky Mountain Logistics, Director of Operations. 135,000 base, performance bonuses, stock options, 3 days remote, company truck. His face changed like I'd slapped him. The casual dismissiveness evaporated, replaced by something I'd never seen before, genuine alarm. Wait, he said, sitting up straighter. You're telling me they're paying that kind of money for someone with... that seems excessive. Someone with what, Rick? He held up his hand. No, look, I didn't mean anything by that. I'm just surprised. That's a significant increase over your current compensation. It's market rate for my experience level and qualifications. He opened the envelope and scanned my resignation letter like he was looking for fine print that would let him argue with it. The professional language, the clean 2-week timeline, the absence of any emotional explanation, it all clearly said this wasn't a negotiation. All right, he said, setting the paper down. Let's not be hasty here. I can work with upper management. How about 85,000 plus a team lead title? You'd be on track for more responsibility down the line. You should have thought about that before laughing in my face. For the first time in 20 years, Rick Brennan had nothing clever to say. No jokes, no condescension, no casual dismissal of my concerns. Just silence and the uncomfortable realization that his reliable, predictable operations coordinator had become someone else entirely. Carl, let's be realistic here. You're 44 years old. Starting over at a new company, that's a young man's game. Stay here where you're established, where people know your value. Apparently they don't. The next 2 weeks were the most interesting period of my professional life. Word spread through the plant faster than news of a safety violation. By Wednesday, everyone from shipping to payroll knew I was leaving for a director position that paid twice my current salary. People started treating me differently. Not better, exactly, but with a kind of respect I hadn't experienced before. Like I'd accomplished something they'd been thinking about for years, but never had the courage to attempt. "Heard you doubled your salary," Paul from receiving said, stopping by my desk Thursday morning. "That true?" "Something like that. About time someone around here got theirs. Been watching you carry this place for years." By the vending machines, Jenny from payroll approached me quietly. Jenny, who never spoke above a whisper, who'd been processing the same purchase orders and invoice reports for 5 years without a meaningful raise or promotion. "I heard you're going to Rocky Mountain," she said, looking around to make sure Rick wasn't within earshot. "Are they hiring other positions?" I pulled out my phone and forwarded her Michelle's contact information. "Tell her I referred you. Mention your experience with accounts payable and vendor relations." "You think they'd be interested?" "Jenny, you handle more complex financial coordination than most people with manager titles. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." She nodded, and I could see something shifting in her expression. The same recognition I'd felt in Rick's office, the moment when you realize your situation isn't permanent unless you choose to keep it that way. Rick made 3 more attempts to negotiate during my final week. Each offer higher than the last, each delivery more desperate than the previous one. Thursday, $95,000 and we'll call you Assistant Operations Manager. You can start hiring your own support staff. Friday, $100,000, plus you can work from home 2 days a week. And I'll get you a company car, maybe not a truck, but something reliable. The following Monday, $105,000. Manager title. Company will lease you whatever vehicle you want within reason. Each time my response was the same. I appreciate the offer, but my decision's final. By Tuesday, Rick's desperation had evolved into something approaching panic. He cornered me by the loading dock during lunch, away from the office where his growing anxiety might be overheard by other employees. "Carl, this is insane. You're walking away from 20 years of investment, 20 years of relationships. You know this operation better than anyone. These people trust you. Then you should have valued that when it mattered. Look, forget everything we discussed before. Clean slate. I'll go to corporate today. 110. Full manager title, profit sharing next quarter. You'll be my second in command officially." I looked at him standing there in his pressed khakis and company polo shirt, probably making twice what he was offering me, trying to buy back 20 years of taking me for granted with promises he couldn't guarantee and respect he should have shown from the beginning. "Rick," I said, "it's not about the money anymore." "Then what's it about?" "Dignity." Friday afternoon at 4:30, I shut down my computer for the last time. 20 years of emails, spreadsheets, vendor contacts, operational procedures, and crisis management protocols. All of it transferred, documented, and handed over to whatever poor soul they'd eventually find to replace me. I packed my personal items into the same cardboard box I'd used for every move within the building. 2 wrenches, a backup phone charger, family photos, and the coffee mug Lisa gave me on my first day. The one with the cracked handle that said, "World's okayest employee." No farewell party, no goodbye cake, no speeches about my contributions to the company's success. Just quiet handshakes with coworkers who understood exactly what my departure meant for their own futures, and awkward good luck comments from people who'd never considered that leaving was an option. I walked down that familiar hallway for the last time, past the flickering fluorescent light that facilities had been promising to fix for 3 years, past the break room bulletin board still advertising last winter's holiday party, past Rick's office where he sat staring at his computer screen like the answers to his staffing crisis might appear in his email. At the exit, I pulled off the security badge I'd worn for 2 decades and dropped it in the return bin. 20 years of access privileges, building security clearance, and institutional knowledge, reduced to a plastic card in a plastic box. Then I walked out into the parking lot, got in my Honda, and drove home to start the next chapter of my professional life. Monday morning at Rocky Mountain Logistics felt like stepping into a parallel universe where competence was expected instead of surprising. New laptop waiting on my desk, welcome package with company policies that actually made sense, direct deposit confirmation showing $5,800 already processed, more than I used to make in 2 months at Walsh. Michelle introduced me to my team of 8 during the morning meeting. Real professionals with real expertise, not people marking time until retirement or counting days until the weekend. When I outlined my 90-day assessment plan for optimizing their Western region operations, they took notes and asked intelligent questions instead of staring blankly and waiting for the meeting to end. "This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking we've been looking for," said Randy, the regional manager who'd been struggling with vendor relationships in Arizona. "When can we start implementing these changes?" "Next week," I said. "But first I want to understand your current pain points and what you've already tried." The conversation that followed reminded me why I'd gone into logistics in the first place. Complex problems with elegant solutions, systems that could be optimized, relationships that mattered, work that actually made a difference instead of just filling time between paychecks. 3 weeks into the job, Rick called my cell phone. I was sitting in my new office, actual window mountain view instead of a parking lot, finishing a quarterly efficiency report that people would read and implement instead of filing in a drawer. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. "Carl, thank God you answered. Listen, we're having serious problems with the Martinez contract renewal. They're asking for terms we've never seen before, penalties we don't understand. Could you walk me through how you used to handle those negotiations?" His voice had a quality I'd never heard before. Not the casual authority he used to project, but something approaching desperation. "Rick," I said, keeping my tone professional, "I don't work there anymore." I know. But you built those relationships over 20 years. You understand the history, the personal connections. Just a quick consultation? We could pay you for your time." "No thanks, Carl, come on. We're drowning here." The new operations manager we hired doesn't know the vendor history, doesn't understand how these contracts evolved. Martinez is threatening to walk away from a $2 million relationship. Then you should have thought about that before deciding my institutional knowledge wasn't worth market wages. There was silence on the other end. Then, "This isn't like you. You always helped when people needed it." "You're right. The old me would have dropped everything to solve your problems for free." The old me thought loyalty was supposed to go both ways. What's that supposed to mean? It means when I needed your help, when I needed you to recognize my value and compensate me accordingly, you laughed in my face. Now you need my help, and suddenly you remember my phone number. "Carl, look, maybe we made some mistakes in how we handled your compensation review." "No maybe about it. You made a choice. You chose to treat 20 years of expertise like it was disposable. So now it's disposed." I hung up. He called back twice that afternoon. I let both calls go to voicemail and deleted them without listening. By the end of my second month at Rocky Mountain, I was hitting my stride in ways I hadn't experienced in years. The efficiency improvements I'd recommended were showing measurable results. Shipping costs down 18% through better vendor consolidation. On-time delivery rates improved from 91 to 96.4%. Customer satisfaction scores at their highest levels in company history. More importantly, I was managing instead of just coordinating. Making strategic decisions instead of implementing other people's ideas. Leading a team instead of being a team of one, handling everything that fell through organizational cracks. Emma's college applications were submitted with confidence instead of anxiety. The tuition payments that had kept Lisa awake at night were now manageable line items in a budget that actually balanced. We booked a family vacation to Yellowstone. First real vacation we'd taken in 6 years, where every meal wasn't calculated against our checking account balance. But the best part was looking in the mirror every morning and recognizing the person staring back. Someone whose expertise was valued, whose experience was leveraged, whose contributions were measured and rewarded appropriately. 6 months after leaving Walsh, Jenny from payroll reached out through LinkedIn. She'd taken my advice about contacting Michelle and landed a position at Rocky Mountain's accounting department. $58,000 starting salary, a $16,000 increase from what Walsh had been paying her to handle twice the workload. Her message was brief. "Thank you for showing me it was possible. I never thought I could leave until I watched you do it." 8 months in, Tommy from shipping sent me a text. "Rick got moved to special projects. New operations manager started last week at 125. Company finally figured out what they lost." I stared at that message for a long time. $125,000 for my replacement, nearly double what they'd been paying me, and still $20,000 less than what Rocky Mountain was giving me. They'd discovered my market value the expensive way, after losing the institutional knowledge that had kept their operation running smoothly for 2 decades. I didn't respond to Tommy's text. Some information doesn't require commentary. A year later, at an industry conference in Chicago, I ran into Bob Martinez from Martinez Freight, the same contract Rick had been panicking about. Bob and I had worked together for 15 years, built a relationship based on mutual respect and reliable performance. "Carl, heard you moved to Rocky Mountain. How's the new role?" "Going well. How are things on your end?" He shook his head with a rueful smile. "We ended up dropping the Walsh contract. New guy they brought in didn't understand our operational requirements, kept pushing terms that didn't work for our business model. Real shame. We enjoyed working with them when you were there." "Where did you end up placing that business?" "Clearwater Materials. Much better cultural fit." I nodded, remembering that Clearwater was one of the companies that had offered me a position during my job search. The logistics industry was smaller than most people realized, and relationships mattered more than corporate policies or contract language. "Your departure really shook up Walsh's operation," Bob continued. "Lost 3 major contracts in 6 months. Word travels fast in our business when a company can't deliver consistent service." At Rocky Mountain's annual strategic planning meeting, I presented the results from my first year managing Western operations. Reduced operational costs by 22% while improving service quality across all metrics. Negotiated vendor agreements that saved the company over $800,000 annually. Implemented route optimization software that cut delivery times by an average of 90 minutes per shipment. The CEO shook my hand after the presentation. "This is exactly the kind of leadership we were hoping for when we hired you. How would you feel about taking on our Eastern expansion project next year?" "I'd be honored." "Excellent. We'll be adjusting your compensation to reflect the increased scope, thinking 160 base to start, with performance bonuses that could take you well past 200. I drove home that evening thinking about Rick's casual dismissal of my salary concerns, how certain he'd been that my family responsibilities meant I'd never risk leaving, how fundamentally he had misunderstood what loyalty meant and how it was supposed to work. That night, Lisa asked the question I'd been expecting for months. "Do you ever regret leaving Walsh?" I thought about it while watching Emma work on her senior year college applications. She was choosing between engineering programs at 3 different universities, all of them within our budget now, all of them representing opportunities we could afford to give her. "No," I said, "best decision I ever made wasn't staying. It was knowing when to leave." Even after building that place for 20 years, especially after 20 years, I spent 2 decades thinking loyalty meant accepting less than I deserved. Turns out loyalty is supposed to be reciprocal. Sometimes revenge isn't dramatic. It doesn't involve shouting matches or burned bridges or vindictive emails copied to entire departments. Sometimes revenge is quiet and professional and absolutely devastating. It's the sound of silence when your former employer calls begging for help. It's watching an operation you built struggle without the institutional knowledge you took with you. It's knowing that the person who didn't value your expertise is now paying someone else twice what they paid you to do the same job less effectively. It's the satisfaction of building a better life at a company that recognized your worth from day one, while your former employer learns the expensive lesson about the difference between market value and what they thought they could get away with paying. I don't help them anymore. I don't consult on their problems or provide free expertise or fix the systems that are failing without me. I don't answer Rick's calls or return his increasingly desperate voicemails. I just keep building the career they told me I didn't deserve, at a company that values experience over exploitation, competence over convenience. And that, I've learned, is the most satisfying revenge of all. Not just succeeding despite their doubts, but succeeding so completely that their doubts become irrelevant to your reality.